Hello everybody, my name is Paul Coyle and I'm the director of the Entrepreneurial Mindset Network. Our mission is to provide practical definitions of the mindset and to share experiences amongst our members. It's free to join the network and we currently have members in 59 countries, which I always take to be a sign of the strength of the global interest in the mindset. People want to know what it is and how to put it to practical use. As the director of the network, I'm either working at my desk or travelling to international meetings. So pre-lockdown, I was working in my office to prepare the content of a 3-hour mindset masterclass and getting ready to travel to Italy, Portugal, Poland and the UK to deliver it. Then, of course, all those planned meetings became completely out of the question. And like many of the people in today's webinar, I've been trying to adapt and to move more of my activity online. The main task I've been working on has been to develop and launch an online course, The Power of the Entrepreneurial Mindset. The course is not just aimed at people who want to set up, run and scale a business. The premise of all our work is that anybody can benefit from thinking and acting like an entrepreneur. Therefore, the course also supports academics and students from any subject discipline. I think there have been two main challenges, which no doubt other people are also experiencing. The first was to learn the audio, video and hosting software from scratch in less than 2 weeks. And the second challenge was to make sure that the content requires active, not passive learning. In each module, there are 2 hours of practical exercises designed to engage the learner and half an hour of video instruction. What I've learned, which is what I had expected, is that producing this type of content is very time consuming. I reckon I need 1 full week to prepare each 2.5-hour module. The first module of the course is called Introducing the Entrepreneurial Mindset, and the second module is Coping with Change, Creating Change. For me, an essential idea about the mindset is that it empowers individuals to deal with change, not just to be able to cope with change, but to contribute to and to lead change. Again, many people in this webinar will be engaged in change management, helping their institutions to become more entrepreneurial. Our starting point is usually that change is positive and that to make it happen, we just need to devise a strategy, allocate some budget and set some deadlines. If only it were that straightforward. The hard part is to get people on board, to help them to see the part they could play and motivate them to make their contribution. To be successful, therefore, we need a good understanding of how individuals and organisations deal with change, and the HE Innovate project over many years now has been supporting such transformations in higher education. For example, in 2016, an HE Innovate conference was held in Brussels. It was called Facilitating Change in Higher Education, with the subtitle I3, Ignite, Inspire and Innovate. Ignite, how to excite people and get them interested. Inspire, how to motivate people to get on board and take action. Innovate, how to enable people to change established practices and introduce new ways of working. I presented one of the sessions at the conference in a track with the theme of leadership and governance. My presentation, Leading Change, gave a number of recommendations about leading entrepreneurial change in higher education. And these recommendations were drawn from lessons gained at prior HE Innovate events, which had been held in England, Scotland, Spain and Wales. I think the recommendations are still valid, even if the current context feels very different. So I've made sure that a handout of the Leading Change slides will be available for people to download after today's webinar. I think the reason that the recommendations remain valid is because they're realistic. They acknowledge that significant change is difficult because it generates positive and negative responses. It creates new opportunities, but also generates uncertainty and complexity. If you're responsible for initiating and delivering change, I think it's vital to remember that individuals react in different ways. And this, I think, is exactly what we're seeing in the current crisis. Some people enjoy the thrill of the ride and some people find it terrifying. I find it useful to think of each person being on their own personal roller coaster, meaning that we're all experiencing a range of ups and downs, but each of us at different points in time. That means we need 2 things. Firstly, resilience to deal with the emotions, the doubts, the worries and the fear. And secondly, we need to exercise sensitivity to where other people are at the moment. For some people, the changes triggered by the current crisis are extremely difficult, even catastrophic, and they are going to be in survival mode for some time to come. In good or bad times, it's useful to see change as a journey. At the moment, everything's on hold and we're all asking, when are we going to get back to normal? But what is normal? Does it mean going back to how things were or transitioning to new ways of working? Will we simply fall back on old ways, or will we reevaluate how best to meet the needs of our students, business and society? Will we continue with traditional ways of teaching, have online teaching instead, or a mixture of the two? To understand where higher education can go next, we need to understand where it is now. Let's think about higher education in terms of an entrepreneurial journey, from startup to scale-up to shake-up. My take is that the majority of HE has always been in the startup phase, with each institution having a small number of specialist entrepreneurship programs, maybe some optional generalist provision, perhaps a research centre, an incubator, but very few institutions have worked out how to scale entrepreneurial thinking to the organisation as a whole. The assumption of the title of our webinar is that the COVID-19 crisis has created new problems for higher education. However, I would argue that it has merely exacerbated problems that already existed. Why have universities only now moved to online learning? Why have staff at a UK university been protesting this week against the move to online learning, describing it as cynical, reckless and destructive? Is it because they want an academic debate on the merits of traditional teaching versus online? Or is it because they're worried about contractual issues, about the ongoing casualisation of employment and the prospect of new redundancies? The crisis reveals the existing weaknesses of the HE business model. Even before the crisis, it would have been prudent to have asked yourself, will I still have a job next year? It's just that this question seems more obvious now. Now things are worse and many parts of our economies are facing potentially catastrophic change. What makes us think that higher education will be protected and insulated from those changes? When a higher education institution experiences a crisis, it always focuses back on its core business of recruiting students, teaching and research. And that's when you find out what the real level of commitment is to other issues. What will it say about the value higher education really places on entrepreneurship if this issue now falls much lower on the list of priorities? How entrepreneurial is higher education if it can't survive without billions in government bailouts? What do the bailouts for the self-employed, for SMEs, for corporations, and even for billionaires tell us about entrepreneurship? Has the crisis actually revealed the fragility of the majority of existing business models? What are the implications for the economy? If one domino falls, is the whole system going to come crashing down? Can universities continue to claim that they equip students with the resilience they will need for self-employment? Is this where we give up on entrepreneurship? Or is this when we campaign to convince people that entrepreneurial ways of thinking and acting have never been more important? I want to turn our attention to what each of us can do about these many problems. If you're participating in this webinar today, then most likely you are a champion of entrepreneurship in higher education. And the idea of networks like the HE Innovate community or the Entrepreneurial Mindset Network is to support people like you. If you have an entrepreneurial mindset, you won't be discouraged by all the challenges we face at the moment. You won't be asking, when is somebody else going to do something about this? You'll be saying to yourself, what am I going to do? What am I going to do today? I would suggest that each of us has to double our efforts at a time when support from our institutions for entrepreneurship may waver. We don't have to wait for people in formal leadership positions to do things. Each and every one of us can play our own part and contribute to finding solutions. We can use our personal and the collective resources of our networks for the common good. I want to conclude by suggesting that you can be guided by the mindset mnemonic which underpins the work of the Entrepreneurial Mindset Network. M, meet real needs. You could try to convince your institution to really focus on meeting the acute needs of students, business and society. I, innovate. You could suggest new solutions, not just incremental improvements. N, never act unethically. You could call out unethical behaviours in others and the system. D, dare to take risks. You could speak up and say what you really think. S, sell. You could convince your colleagues and leaders of the benefits of entrepreneurial thinking. E, exercise for productivity. You have to role model how to do even more with even less. And T, take the initiative. Don't stand back and wait for others. Have a sense of urgency and take positive action today. For more info, go to our website, click on the link about this webinar. You'll be able to re-watch a video of this presentation, download a slide with the Mindset mnemonic, download the leading change recommendations from the HE Innovate conference, and find out more about the online course, The Power of the Entrepreneurial Mindset. I'm obviously going to be happy to answer any questions in the webinar discussion today, and also feel free to email me afterwards at director@emindset.network.